Usually when we think about global supply chains,
Yeah.
there's this underlying expectation of just total frictionless precision.
Right, like perfectly engineered clockwork.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Mhm.
the industry spent the last 40 years building this perfect machine based on just-in-time delivery.
Absolutely.
You order a component from, say, an Asian manufacturing hub, and a vessel travels in this clean, predictable line across the map. And then a few weeks later, it arrives at a warehouse exactly when the assembly line needs it.
We really fell into the habit of treating our maps as static, just assuming those maritime trade routes were basically permanent features of the global economy.
But stepping into the reality of the year 2026, that assumption is just completely shattered, especially when you look at the Strait of Hormuz.
Oh, yeah. That perfect machine is currently jammed.
Totally jammed. We are looking at a geographical choke point that has morphed from a predictable artery into this massive geopolitical wildcard.
I mean, you've got naval skirmishes, sophisticated GPS spoofing, electronic interference, and of course, targeted drone activity. It's fundamentally rewritten the operational rulebook for global logistics in that region.
That structural shift is exactly our mission for this deep dive. We are unpacking how the United Arab Emirates is engineering a massive defense against this disruption.
It's honestly fascinating.
It really is. They are executing what you could call a masterclass in operational decoupling. Basically, physically and legally shifting an entire nation's logistical framework from a fragile, single-route model to a truly anti-fragile architecture.
Right, they're literally rewiring a country.
Exactly. And we've pulled together a really dense stack of sources to guide this analysis for you today. We've got shipping intelligence from the Lodestar, regional infrastructure data from the National and the Abu Dhabi Media Office.
Plus some energy strategy reports from the print and Wikipedia, right?
Yep. And macroeconomic projections from the World Bank, along with some really great supply chain playbooks from Tendify.
It's a lot of data to sift through.
It is. But our objective today is to explore how the UAE is heavily prioritizing certainty of delivery over just, mere speed to market. And more importantly, whether you're managing a corporate supply chain or an investment portfolio, what you can extract from this massive physical pivot.
Setting the macro stage here is super essential before we get into it.
Go for it.
So our sources consistently reference the broader 2026 U.S.-Israel-Iran conflict, as well as the ongoing Houthi threats in the Red Sea as the primary drivers of this whole disruption.
Right. And just a really quick note on that before we dig into the actual numbers. For our analysis today, we are setting the politics completely aside.
Completely.
We are not taking any sides in these conflicts, and we're definitely not endorsing the viewpoints or actions of any actors mentioned in the source material.
Right. We're just looking at the facts.
Exactly. We are looking strictly at the hard economic and infrastructural data to understand how global trade routes are actively adapting to all the severe stress.
And when you view the map purely through that lens of logistics and resilience, it really reveals the immense scale of the problem the UAE is trying to solve.
Yeah, the numbers are wild.
They are. The World Bank data highlights this stark contrast in economic momentum. Prior to this recent wave of localized conflict, the UAE was on a massive upward trajectory.
Right.
Their real GDP growth was estimated at a highly robust 5.6% for 2025, which was fueled by heavy non-oil industrial activity and expanded energy production.
But then fast forward to the 2026 projections, and the World Bank expects that growth to decelerate all the way to 2.4%.
Which is a huge drop.
A massive drop. And the primary culprit is this heightened security risk choking off energy shipments, container traffic, and aviation.
Right.
So the UAE isn't just tweaking their supply chain a little bit. They are actively defending their entire macroeconomic model. And they're doing it by systematically bypassing the Strait of Hormuz entirely.
Which is wild to think about because, bypassing a strait requires you to physically intercept the cargo before the ships ever enter the high-risk zone.
Right, you have to start at the outer edge of the water.
Exactly. And DP World, the massive Dubai-based ports operator, they recently signed a 50-year concession with the Fujairah Ports Authority to do exactly that.
50 years. That's a massive commitment.
Huge. They are pouring capital into developing two entirely new deep-water terminals on the UAE's east coast, Rugaylat and Dibba.
And just for context, Fujairah and Khorfak, they sit on the Gulf of Oman, so they face the open Indian Ocean.
Right, so they completely avoid the strait.
Yeah, and this expansion pushes DP World's total container handling capacity in the UAE to nearly 22 million TEU.
22 million.
Yeah, 22 million 20-foot equivalent units. It's honestly like realizing your daily commercial commute relies on a single bridge that is constantly catching fire.
That's a good way to put it.
Right. So you just decide to spend billions building an entirely new megastation on your side of the river so your trains never have to cross it again.
Yeah, and not only are you building the new station, but you are restructuring the fundamental financial calculus for the shipping lines themselves.
How so?
Well, the industry relies heavily on this concept of Tier 1 asset protection.
Okay.
The ultra-large container vessels, the ULCVs moving all this cargo, they're floating assets often valued north of $200 million each.
Wow.
And that's not even counting the billions of dollars of cargo on board. So ship owners are looking at the contested internal waters of the Persian Gulf and flat out refusing to expose that much capital to unpredictable electronic warfare and kinetic risks.
Well, wait, isn't adding a 400-kilometer overland routing across the Emirates just to avoid a day or two of sailing around the Musandam Peninsula? Isn't that highly inefficient on the surface?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, the math on fuel, labor, and transloading alone must be huge. On a clean spreadsheet, sailing directly into Jebel Ali in Dubai seems vastly superior.
On a clean spreadsheet, yes. But in a contested war risk zone, the insurance premiums completely invert that math.
The insurance.
Yeah. When a vessel enters the Strait of Hormuz in this 2026 climate, hull and machinery insurance, alongside protection and indemnity coverage, they experience catastrophic spikes.
How bad are the spikes?
We're talking about war risk surcharges that can instantly wipe out the profit margin for an entire voyage.
Just gone.
Instantly gone. So by offering ship owners the ability to discharge their cargo safely into deepwater ports on the Indian Ocean side, the UAE is structurally neutralizing those insurance spikes.
So they are trading a cheap, fast, high-risk maritime route for a highly controlled, slightly longer logistical chain.
Exactly.
But offloading 22 million containers on the East Coast creates a secondary problem, doesn't it?
It does.
I mean, a deepwater port is useless if the cargo just piles up on the docks. The consumer hubs, the manufacturing centers, the primary distribution nodes for the rest of the Middle East, those are all sitting on the West Coast in Dubai and Abu Dhabi.
Right, which is why bypassing a choke point requires more than just ports. You need a high-velocity inland land bridge.
The invisible infrastructure.
Exactly. The physical engineering required to absorb an ocean's worth of freight and push it across a desert is immense.
And the sources outline a staggering physical mobilization for this. DP World didn't just build the ports. They recently went out and acquired 700 new heavy-duty trucks, specifically to power this overland movement.
700 trucks just for this specific route.
Yeah, you are effectively substituting a massive ocean voyage with a highly synchronized relay race of trucks.
But even with 700 trucks, the road network alone couldn't handle that volume without creating structural gridlock, you know?
Right, 22 million containers on trucks is a lot of traffic.
Exactly. So Etihad Rail, the national railway, has really stepped in as the heavy lift backbone of this resilience strategy.
Oh, the rail network.
Yeah, to give you an idea of the density, in one single 9-day period, Etihad Rail operated over 100 freight train trips.
Wow. In 9 days.
9 days. They moved nearly 500,000 tons of cargo and 7,900 containers directly across these industrial zones.
That is massive scale. And the 10-5 strategic playbook actually maps out the operational anatomy of this new land bridge, and it really functions as this 4-stage circulatory system.
Yeah, break that down for us.
So first you have the ocean leg, where the mother vessel discharges at Corfacan or Fujairah, completely avoiding the strait.
Right, keeping the big ships safe.
Then you have the bonded inland movement, putting the cargo onto that massive fleet of trucks and trains we just talked about.
Okay.
That feeds into the Riyadh dry port hub in Sharjah, which acts as a centralized consolidation and transloading center.
Which is so smart.
It really is. And finally, you have the feeder and cross-border distribution, pushing the organized cargo up to the upper Gulf, so places like Dammam, Kuwait, or Basra.
And that Sharjah dry port is the crucial mechanism there, I think.
How so?
Well, it prevents the coastal ports from clogging up. You move all the sorting and processing inland, keeping the expensive waterfront real estate focused entirely on loading and unloading ships as fast as possible.
But wait, moving goods across international borders, or even just from an East Coast port to a West Coast free zone, that traditionally involves a mountain of customs bureaucracy.
Oh, tons of it.
Right. Unloading, inspecting, filing paperwork, paying duties. Shifting the volume of a major maritime straight onto land should logically create a continent-sized bureaucratic parking lot.
Yeah, it absolutely would if they hadn't engineered the digital infrastructure to match the physical infrastructure.
Tell me more about that.
So the UAE rolled out Customs Notice 032026 to create this sort of invisible infrastructure. They established digitally enforced, customs-controlled, bonded corridors.
I really want to dig into how a bonded corridor actually functions in this context, because customs paperwork is notoriously slow.
Right. Think of it as a virtual legal tunnel stretching from the port of arrival directly to the final destination hub.
Okay, virtual tunnel.
Yeah, when a container comes off the ship at Khor or even further out at a port like Sohar in Oman or Jeddah in the Red Sea, it is immediately secured with a GPS-enabled e-seal.
Oh, an e-seal.
Right. The physical box is locked and tracked in real time. Because the integrity of the container is digitally verified, registered trusted traders can load it onto a truck and drive it all the way to Jebel Ali.
Without stopping.
Without stopping.
Yeah.
Or even across a land border without stopping for a full import clearance at the port of entry.
So the truck effectively acts as a temporary extension of international waters.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
They aren't paying tariffs while it's just passing through the corridor.
Exactly. Registered traders face zero upfront VAT and duty outlays during that transit phase.
Wow, that saves a lot of capital.
Huge amounts. And to ensure the checkpoints don't become bottlenecks, the UAE mandated pre-berth verification using a system called Bayon 2.0.
Bayon 2.0.
Yeah. The digital origin proofs, the manifests, the customs filings, they are all processed and rendered airtight before the mother vessel even drops anchor.
They digitize the paperwork to outpace the physical movement of the cargo. That is brilliant.
It really is.
And looking at the Identify Route comparison matrix, the outcome of combining those deepwater ports, the 700 trucks, the rail network, and the e-seals is a guaranteed 5 to 7 day multimodal route.
Which is incredible.
It is. I mean, yes, it takes several days longer than the traditional 1 to 2 day direct Hormuz transit. But that direct route currently carries the looming threat of a 15-day delay if a naval blockade triggers.
Right, a 15-day delay, plus those exorbitant insurance premiums we talked about.
Exactly. In a volatile landscape, certainty of delivery has completely replaced speed to market as the ultimate metric of logistical success.
Absolutely. But, while consumer goods and manufacturing components represent a massive portion of the Gulf's economy, the actual anchor of national sovereignty in this region is crude oil.
Right. Energy.
Yeah, if the energy exports stop, the entire economic engine of the state seizes up entirely.
And that requires an entirely different type of infrastructure than just trucks and trains.
Totally different.
The sources detail a massive undertaking known as the West-East 1 pipeline.
Right, the energy exit.
Yeah, it's being fast-tracked to run parallel to the existing Habshan-Fujairah pipeline, which is known as ADCOP.
Okay.
Currently, ADCOP moves roughly 1.5 million barrels a day. But this new mega project is designed to double their crude export capacity entirely outside the strait by 2027.
And the geopolitical strategy behind this pipeline extends far beyond simply avoiding a 2026 conflict zone.
Really? What else is driving it?
It is deeply intertwined with the UAE's broader macroeconomic ambitions, specifically their post-OPEC strategy.
Oh, right. The analysis from the print provides excellent context on this.
It really does.
The UAE has spent years aggressively expanding its oil production capacity, and they eventually reached a point where they were highly dissatisfied with the production quotas being enforced by the OPEC Plus framework.
Yeah, those quotas were basically forcing them to leave significant production capacity sitting completely idle.
Right, which makes no sense for them economically.
Exactly. But leaving a cartel to expand your output on your own terms is really only half the battle. Because if you pump an extra 1 million barrels of oil a day, but the only way to get it to your buyers is through a geographic choke point controlled by regional rivals or threatened by asymmetric warfare, you don't actually have energy independence.
Oh, I see.
The West-East 1 pipeline to Fujairah gives them an independent spigot. It secures their ability to monetize their production capacity regardless of the geopolitical weather in the Persian Gulf.
That makes total sense. And the chief executive of ADNOC, Sultan Al-Jaber, he summarized this reality perfectly in the sources.
What did he say?
He stated, quote, "Energy security is no longer just about your ability to continue to produce. It is about routes, access, storage, and redundancy."
Redundancy is the defining characteristic of an anti-fragile system.
Exactly.
And that pipeline is just the physical manifestation of that principle.
But let me push back on this a bit.
Okay, sure.
The UAE is successfully insulating its own economy. Right. They're spending billions to build a bypass around the region's biggest vulnerability.
Right.
But looking at the global energy market, countries like India import upwards of 85% of their crude, heavily sourced from West Asia. If the primary maritime route is jammed, does a localized UAE pipeline actually alleviate the pressure for major Asian economies?
That's a great question. And yes, it actually drastically improves the situation for buyers like India.
How so?
Because geographically, when you load crude oil at Fujairah, it enters directly into the Arabian Sea. It never goes near the congested, high-risk waters of the Strait of Hormuz.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so for Indian refiners, purchasing UAE crude from the East Coast means significantly lower freight costs.
Because the voyage is shorter and safer.
Exactly. Zero exposure to those massive Hormuz marine insurance premiums and a highly reliable delivery schedule during periods of intense regional tension.
So the UAE is essentially exporting stability to their biggest clients,
That's exactly what they're doing.
giving themselves a massive competitive advantage over other regional producers who can't offer that same certainty of delivery.
Yeah, but the print analysis adds a crucial caveat to this whole dynamic.
Which is?
The UAE is building a massive, highly effective personal lifeboat, but they are not draining the ocean.
Ah, I like that analogy.
Yeah, the Strait of Hormuz remains an unavoidable vulnerability for many of their neighbors.
Who is still stuck using it?
Well, Iraq and Kuwait still rely heavily on the strait for their crude exports.
Right.
Qatar's massive liquefied natural gas shipments, along with a huge portion of Saudi Arabia's eastern flows, they all still have to navigate that choke point.
Wow.
So the systemic risk hasn't vanished from the global market at all. The UAE has simply engineered a way to decouple their specific national interests from it.
Okay, so we've tracked how the UAE is physically rewiring their geography with new deepwater ports, 700 truck land bridges, virtual customs tunnels, and transnational pipelines.
It's a lot of infrastructure.
It really is. But extracting the core principles from this masterclass in macroeconomic adaptation brings us to the most vital part of our analysis today.
Right, how the listener can actually use this.
Exactly. How you can apply these lessons to your own strategic planning.
Synthesizing the data across all these sources, the overarching lesson here is really about mastering the economic concept of the seen versus the unseen.
The French economist Frédéric Bastiat's principle applied directly to global logistics.
You got it.
So the seen reality is the spreadsheet showing that a direct maritime route through Hormuz is cheaper and faster on a Tuesday.
Right.
But the unseen reality is the catastrophic, unquantifiable risk of a total blockade on a Wednesday.
Exactly. Or a sudden localized insurance spike that completely destroys your annual margin.
So the UAE looked at the unseen risk of relying on a single geographic choke point and determined it was a structural liability they were no longer willing to carry.
And that philosophical shift translates into 3 highly actionable takeaways for modern business strategy.
Let's hear them.
The first is that fragility is a choice.
Fragility is a choice. Because for decades, corporate strategy was just dominated by efficiency, right? Lean supply chains, single-source suppliers to maximize volume discounts, zero inventory buffers. We optimized for the absolute lowest cost, but in doing so, we engineered massive fragility into the system.
Yeah, relying on a single route, a single supplier, or a single revenue stream is just a choice to remain vulnerable.
Right.
What the UAE demonstrates is that strategic redundancy, investing capital into a plan B that is fully operational, heavily tested, and actively utilized, that is an invaluable asset, not a sunk cost.
And that feeds directly into the second major takeaway, which is certainty heavily outweighs speed.
So true.
The entire era of just-in-time manufacturing was built on the assumption of a peaceful, predictable globe.
Which we don't have right now.
Exactly. In a volatile 2026 landscape, arriving fast, but only 60% of the time, is a failing business model.
Yeah, a guaranteed, predictable 7-day multimodal delivery vastly outperforms a 2-day direct transit that carries, say, a 20% chance of getting seized or blocked for weeks.
Predictability is the new currency of logistics.
Absolutely. And the final takeaway is this concept of infrastructure as sovereignty.
Explain that one a bit more.
Well, true self-determination, whether you are running a sovereign nation or a multinational corporation, it isn't built on drafting optimistic policy papers or simply hoping macroeconomic conditions remain stable.
Right. Hoping for the best isn't a strategy.
No. It is built by investing heavily in hard assets and core capabilities. For a nation like the UAE, that means pouring concrete for ports, laying steel for pipelines, and writing the code for digital customs systems.
And for a business leader, That translates to owning your own distribution channels, maybe vertically integrating your most critical supplies, or building proprietary software that insulates you from third-party vendor failures.
Exactly. When you zoom out, the UAE's operational decoupling is essentially treating their physical geography the way a sophisticated hedge fund manager treats a financial portfolio.
Hedging against the map.
Yeah. They recognized an overconcentration in a high-risk asset, the Strait of Hormuz, and they are actively hedging against the physical map of the world by diversifying their logistical routing.
Divesting from structural risk and reinvesting in lower-risk alternatives requires immense upfront capital expenditure, obviously.
Oh, yeah, and sheer political will.
But it is the only way to build a truly anti-fragile architecture that can actually survive severe external shocks.
It really is.
Well, this has been a fascinating exploration into the physical mechanics of global trade and the hard realities of resilience. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the UAE's shift toward operational decoupling.
It's been great going through the data.
Tracking these massive infrastructural pivots really proves that understanding global events requires looking past the daily news cycle.
Totally.
You have to focus on the unglamorous, highly vital world of logistics, marine insurance, and supply chain architecture.
Because analyzing the physical flow of goods fundamentally changes how you perceive global risks. And we want to leave you with a specific thought to carry forward into your own strategic planning today.
The UAE identified the glaring vulnerability of their primary geographical choke point, and they committed billions of dollars of years of labor to construct a reliable, multimodal bypass before the situation became completely unmanageable.
So look critically at your own business model, your career trajectory, or your corporate supply chains today. What is your Strait of Hormuz? What is that single point of failure, that one highly efficient but intensely vulnerable route or relationship that you're blindingly relying on? And more importantly, what is your plan to build a bypass before it gets blocked?